Hi everyone, I'm Marla from This Marla Says, and I go by she, her pronouns. By day, I am a therapist or counselor and a facilitator, and the areas of focus of my practice tend to be around relationships and communication, different kinds of relationships, all kinds of things around sexuality and gender. It goes on and on. But today, what I really want to talk about is setting boundaries given the changing restrictions around coronavirus. And this is setting boundaries in our close relationships, the people we live with, but also at work with coworkers as we're going back to work for some people for the first time, maybe in months. And so, what I want to name is that I have been thinking about sort of what it means to be in a world where there's risk. There's risk for everyone, no matter what we do. And there always is, right? We can always go outside and fall and hurt ourselves. I mean, this is the real world. But I think it's important to consider that we're going to have to take some risks as the restrictions let up. And here where I am in Canada, in a big city, I'm seeing that happening, right? Our numbers are lower. And so we are seeing a shift in the way that restriction looks in our lives. But for some people, that might look super exciting and liberating. And for other people, it's really anxiety provoking. You know, for some people, the fear of this invisible virus is really, really big. And that is not necessarily just fear for me and my own safety, but also stuff like, oh my gosh, I could be a carrier and I could actually be transmitting this virus without knowing it. I know a lot of people doing that, right? And as we're talking about expanding our bubbles, right? Oh, I can see 10 people, right? Great. So I can see 10 people. We can touch each other and hug each other and have no masks on and share space. But a lot of people are doing the math of like, wait, but what are those 10 people doing? So if I'm seeing 10 people and 10 people are seeing 10 other people and then they're seeing 10 people and all of a sudden it's exponential. And all of a sudden I'm not just seeing this one other person, but I'm also seeing the 10 people they've seen and the 10 people they've seen. And it could be like 50 to 100 people removed, but I'm still technically in a bubble with them. And I didn't consent to that. This is about consent. This is about what we're agreeing to and not agreeing to. And I think the important thing is that when people insist on wearing masks, when people ask for a little bit more space or not to be touched, right? Even if they're close people in our lives, when people say, I don't want to have more people over right now, you know, if you're sharing living spaces, I think what's really important is to listen. And I'm not saying that the person who's making the hardest sounding rules or with the most safety precautions is always the only voice to listen to, but there is a negotiation that really has to happen here. And that's what I want to name, is that everyone's position is valid, and it's important to keep in mind that people being cornered feeling like, oh, I don't want to feel like a parent to my friends and tell them what they can and can't do. At the end of the day, if that's impacting my sense of security and safety in my close relationships, that is something to talk about. Similarly, if someone's like, you're not my parent, like you can't tell me what to do, maybe there's something there where they need to really express, like, I really have a need to see some of my friends. All of a sudden, you can have these two very adult people, no one is the parent or the child in the relationship, we're two adults with different boundaries negotiating. Let's compromise. Compromise means everyone wins and everyone loses, but together we come up with agreements that make sense for all of us. I'm going to make another video coming out talking a little bit more about how to actually set those boundaries. I hope this was helpful. Wishing you a wonderful day, whatever wonderful needs to look like for you right now.